Welcome back, thanks for tuning into our Crime Stories Lab. Where are you watching from? Drop in comment and subscribe to our channel, thanks. Let's dive in. The first time I saw Officer Mark Reynolds, I knew he was trouble. It wasn't a conscious thought, more like a primal instinct tingling at the nape of my neck. He was leaning against his patrol car, the setting sun glinting off his aviator sunglasses, talking to my wife, Sarah. He was all easy charm and practiced smiles, and Sarah was practically glowing under his attention. Sarah. My Sarah. We'd been together for 10 years, married for 7. We had a comfortable life in the quiet suburban town of Meadow Creek. I was a software engineer, Sarah a kindergarten teacher. We were normal. Or at least, I thought we were. That night, Sarah was unusually quiet at dinner. She picked at her food, her eyes distant. I tried to make conversation, asking about her day, but her responses were short and clipped. "Everything okay, hon?" I asked, reaching across the table to take her hand. She pulled her hand away, a flinch almost imperceptible. "Fine," she said, a little too quickly. "Just tired." The kids were energetic today. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it burrowed deep. Over the next few weeks, the encounters with Officer Reynolds became more frequent. He'd be patrolling our street, stopping to chat with Sarah while she watered the flowers. He'd show up at the local grocery store when she was there, always with a charming smile and a seemingly innocent conversation. I tried to dismiss it. I told myself I was being paranoid, insecure. Sarah was beautiful, intelligent, and kind. Of course, men would be attracted to her. But there was something in the way she looked at Reynolds, a spark I hadn't seen in a long time, a spark that was definitely not directed at me. One evening, I came home early from work, hoping to surprise Sarah with dinner. The house was quiet, too quiet. I found a note on the kitchen counter, "Gone to the store. Be back soon. Love, Sarah." The love felt perfunctory, almost an afterthought. I knew the store she usually went to, and I decided to walk there, wanting to stretch my legs and clear my head. As I rounded the corner, I saw her car parked in front of the Meadow Creek Inn, a small, somewhat seedy motel on the outskirts of town. My heart lurched. A cold dread washed over me. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my legs frozen to the pavement, before finally forcing myself to move. I walked closer, my steps heavy, my breath caught in my throat. I saw him then, Officer Reynolds, walking out of room number 7. He was adjusting his belt, a smug look on his face. I didn't see Sarah. The world tilted. My vision blurred. A roaring filled my ears. I wanted to scream, to rage, to tear him limb from limb. But I couldn't move. I was paralyzed by disbelief and a crushing sense of betrayal. Reynolds saw me. His eyes widened, the smugness instantly replaced with a look of cold calculation. He straightened his posture, his hand instinctively moving towards his holster. "Mark," I managed to croak out, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't say anything. He just stared at me, his eyes devoid of any emotion. I turned and walked away, my head swimming. I didn't know where I was going, I just needed to get away. I walked for hours, lost in my own private hell. The pain was unbearable, a raw, gaping wound in my soul. When I finally stumbled back home, Sarah was there, sitting on the porch, looking concerned. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice laced with worry. I was starting to get worried. I looked at her, at the woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted, the woman who had just ripped my heart out. "I know," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "I know about you and Reynolds." Her face paled. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. "The Meadow Creek Inn, room number 7, I continued. "I saw him." Tears welled up in her eyes. "David, I..." "Don't," I said, cutting her off. "Just, don't." I went inside, packed a bag, and left. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there, not for another minute. I ended up at a cheap motel a few towns over, a place that smelled of stale cigarettes and desperation. I spent the next few days in a daze, barely eating, barely sleeping. I replayed the scene in my head over and over again, each time feeling the pain anew. One evening, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find two uniformed officers standing there. One was a woman, the other Officer Reynolds. My blood ran cold. "David Miller?" Reynolds asked, his voice devoid of any warmth. "Yes," I said, my voice trembling. "You're under arrest for assault." "Assault? What are you talking about?" "We have a warrant for your arrest. You're accused of assaulting Officer Mark Reynolds." I stared at him in disbelief. This couldn't be happening. This had to be a nightmare. "This is a lie," I said, my voice rising. "He's lying. He's having an affair with my wife." Reynolds just smirked. "You have the right to remain silent." They handcuffed me and led me away. As they put me in the back of the patrol car, I saw Sarah standing on the sidewalk, her face etched with guilt and fear. I was taken to the Meadow Creek police station, booked, and thrown into a cell. The charges were aggravated assault, a felony. I was told I had the right to an attorney, but I didn't know who to call. My whole world had been turned upside down. Days turned into weeks. I sat in that cell, replaying the events over and over again, trying to make sense of it all. How had my life spiraled so completely out of control? How had I gone from a happily married man to a jail inmate accused of a crime I didn't commit? A public defender was assigned to my case, a young woman named Emily Carter. She was overworked and underpaid, but she seemed genuinely concerned about my situation. "Tell me everything," she said during our first meeting. "Leave nothing out." I told her the whole story, from the first time I saw Reynolds talking to Sarah, to the moment I saw him leaving the motel room, to my arrest. Emily listened intently, taking notes. When I was finished, she looked at me with a mixture of sympathy and concern. "This is complicated," she said. "It's your word against a police officer's. And he's claiming you assaulted him. Do you have any witnesses?" "No," I said. "It was just him and me." "Did you actually hit him?" "No." I was just shocked. "I didn't touch him." Emily sighed. "Okay. We need to find some evidence to support your story. Is there anyone who saw Reynolds and your wife together?" I thought for a moment. "Mrs. Henderson, our neighbor. She's always watching everything. She might have seen something." Emily interviewed Mrs. Henderson, who confirmed that she had seen Reynolds visiting Sarah frequently, often when I wasn't home. She also said she had noticed Sarah seemed different lately, more secretive and withdrawn. It was a start, but it wasn't enough. We needed something more concrete, something that would prove Reynolds was lying. Emily subpoenaed Reynolds' phone records, hoping to find evidence of communication with Sarah. But the records came back clean. He had been careful. As the trial approached, I felt increasingly hopeless. It seemed like everyone was against me. Reynolds was a respected police officer, I was just a software engineer with a jealous streak. Who would believe me? The trial began. Reynolds took the stand and testified that I had attacked him in a fit of rage, accusing him of having an affair with my wife. He claimed I had punched him in the face and threatened to kill him. He even had a small bruise on his cheek, which he claimed was from my punch. Sarah was called to testify. She was clearly uncomfortable, but she corroborated Reynolds' story. She said I had been increasingly paranoid and jealous, and that I had a history of violent outbursts. I was devastated. How could she do this to me? How could she lie like that? Emily cross-examined Sarah, trying to expose the inconsistencies in her story. But Sarah was unwavering. She stuck to her story, even when Emily pressed her about her relationship with Reynolds. I took the stand in my own defense. I told the truth, the whole truth. I told the jury about Reynolds' pursuit of Sarah, about seeing him leaving the motel room, about my shock and despair. I maintained that I never touched him. Emily presented the evidence we had gathered, Mrs. Henderson's testimony, Reynolds' phone records, or lack thereof, and the fact that I had no prior history of violence. But it wasn't enough. The jury deliberated for hours. Finally, they returned their verdict. Guilty. I was convicted of aggravated assault. The judge sentenced me to 5 years in prison. My world crumbled. As I was being led away, I saw Emily standing there, her face filled with disappointment. "I'm so sorry, David," she said. "I did everything I could." "It's not your fault," I said, my voice barely audible. Nobody believed me. Life in prison was brutal. I was surrounded by hardened criminals, men who had committed far worse crimes than I had. I was an outsider, a fish out of water. I spent my days trying to survive, trying to avoid trouble, trying to hold on to some semblance of hope. I wrote letters to Emily, updating her on my situation, asking her to keep digging, to keep fighting for me. Months passed. Then, one day, I received a letter from Emily that made my heart leap. "I think I've found something," she wrote. "I've been investigating Reynolds' past, and I've discovered a pattern. He's been accused of similar behavior before, targeting women, manipulating situations, and using his position to get away with it. I've found 2 other women who have accused him of abuse of power. They're afraid to come forward, but I'm working on convincing them to testify." I felt a surge of hope, the first I had felt in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance I could get out of this nightmare. Emily continued to investigate, working tirelessly to gather evidence against Reynolds. She tracked down the 2 other women who had accused him of abuse of power and convinced them to come forward. It wasn't easy. They were terrified of Reynolds, afraid of what he might do to them. But Emily persevered, assuring them that they would be protected. One of the women, a former dispatcher named Lisa, testified that Reynolds had pressured her into a sexual relationship, threatening to ruin her career if she didn't comply. The other woman, a waitress named Maria, testified that Reynolds had repeatedly harassed her, stalking her and making unwanted advances. The evidence was damning. It painted a picture of Reynolds as a manipulative and abusive man who used his position of power to exploit vulnerable women. Emily filed a motion for a new trial, arguing that the new evidence proved that Reynolds had lied on the stand and that I had been wrongfully convicted. The judge agreed. A new trial was granted. This time, the atmosphere was different. The jury was more attentive, more skeptical of Reynolds. Emily presented the new evidence, exposing Reynolds' pattern of abuse. Reynolds tried to deny the allegations, but his lies were transparent. He was caught in a web of his own deceit. Sarah was called to testify again. This time, she told the truth. She admitted that she had been having an affair with Reynolds, that he had pressured her into lying on the stand, and that I had never assaulted him. She broke down on the stand, sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm so sorry, David," she cried. "I made a terrible mistake." The jury deliberated for a shorter time this time. They returned their verdict. Not guilty. I was acquitted of all charges. After almost a year in prison, I was finally free. As I walked out of the courthouse, I saw Emily standing there, waiting for me. "You did it," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "You saved me." "We did it," she said, smiling. "You never gave up hope, and neither did I." The aftermath was complicated. Reynolds was fired from the police force and faced criminal charges. Sarah and I divorced. There was too much pain, too much betrayal, for us to ever rebuild our relationship. I moved away from Meadow Creek, wanting to start a new life, to put the past behind me. I got a new job, made new friends, and slowly began to heal. It took a long time, but I eventually learned to forgive Sarah. She had made a terrible mistake, but she had also paid the price for it. She lost her husband, her reputation, and her sense of self-worth. I never saw Reynolds again. He was a broken man, his career and his life in ruins. He had used his power to hurt others, and in the end, it had destroyed him. The experience changed me. It made me stronger, more resilient, and more aware of the injustices in the world. It also taught me the importance of fighting for what is right, even when the odds are stacked against you. I owe everything to Emily. She was more than just a lawyer, she was a friend, a confidant, and a champion. She believed in me when no one else did, and she never gave up fighting for my freedom. Years later, I received a letter from Emily. She was running for district attorney. I donated to her campaign, volunteered my time, and did everything I could to help her get elected. She won by a landslide. I knew she would be a great district attorney. She was honest, compassionate, and dedicated to justice. She would fight for the voiceless, protect the vulnerable, and hold the powerful accountable. My story is a cautionary tale about the abuse of power, the dangers of infidelity, and the importance of fighting for justice. It's a story about betrayal, redemption, and the enduring power of hope. It's a story I will never forget. It is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the truth can prevail, and justice can be served. And sometimes, the siren's song leads not to love, but to the cold, hard slam of a prison door. But even behind those doors, hope can flicker, and justice, however delayed, can eventually find its way. And that's the end of the story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button, it really helps the channel out. Subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a juicy twist in our next story. Got thoughts or a similar experience? Drop a comment below, I love reading what you all have to say.